Making our turn down the home stretch of the fantasy football playoffs, and here we are in week 8 talking about running backs who we should start and sit. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jake Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there in YouTube land. Hopefully you had a successful week 7, but here we are, week 8, talking start sits. We got a couple guys on bye week. We got the Falcons, Cowboys, Chargers, and Titans all on bye. We got some injuries to talk about, and we're going to break down every matchup, all the running backs, who should we start, who should we sit. Real quick, though, before I get into that list, be on the lookout. Saturday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, I'll be doing a live show, and I want as many of you guys there to come interact as we possibly can get. I've done it the past 2 weeks, kind of like spur of the moment, and it's been really successful. Had a lot of fun with it. Want to do the same thing this week, but I want to give you guys a little bit more heads up. Let's see how many people we can get together in the same chat there and answer as many fantasy football questions as possible. Looking forward to that. If you're not subscribed here, subscribe. Check that bell notification because you want to know as soon as I go live, we're going to have fun with it, and I'm looking forward to it. But for now, let's talk about some Week 8 running backs. Thursday Night Football, you got the Miami Dolphins at the Houston Texans. Starting with the Dolphins, we'll be talking about Kenyon Drake and old man Frank Gore. Now, Kenyon Drake has been pretty irritating, right, to say the least. Which Kenyon Drake are you going to get? The guy who's going to go out there and get 5 carries for 3 yards? Or the guy that's going to go out there and get you 6 carries for 72 and a touchdown? He has that upside, and this explosiveness that we saw last year is finally starting to come around, and it's a good week for Kenyon Drake. I'm going to start Kenyon Drake this week. Those wide receivers in Miami are all banged up. Albert Wilson, Kenny Stills, Devontae Parker sucks anyway. However, Kenyon Drake is somebody who could see a lot more usage this week due to the lack of options in that offense. They do have somewhat of a difficult matchup going up against the Houston Texans defense, which is 14th against opposing running backs, giving up on average 21.4 points per game. However, they've only allowed one rushing touchdown on the year. That was way back in week 3 to Saquon Barkley. Decent defense in Houston, but lack of options in Miami. He's going to be a start for me there. Frank Gore, on the other hand, not too interested in Frank Gore. As long as they're heavily involving Drake, Gore is kind of an afterthought. Now, we've seen Gore be productive at times. However, this last week, Frank Gore didn't do a whole lot of nothing. 10 carries, 29 yards, 3 fantasy points. Not really involved. Really like Kenyon Drake this week, though. He's going to be a start for me. On the Houston side of the football, you have Lamar Miller, and I'm pretty sure Lamar Miller, almost more than any fantasy player this past week, had people cursing all over the place. There were probably fantasy owners all over the world dropping F-bombs because they saw what Lamar Miller did against the Jacksonville Jaguars last week. 22 carries, 100 yards, and of course his first rushing touchdown on the season. Had a great game last week, probably mostly on everybody's bench. And now we get Lamar Miller this week against the Miami Dolphins defense that was just torched by Kerryon Johnson last week. They gave up 209 yards rushing. On average, they're giving up 30 points to opposing running backs. But it's Lamar Miller. Which Lamar Miller is going to show up for you guys here this week? Is it going to be the Lamar Miller that gets 14 carries for 49 yards? Or the Lamar Miller from last week where he gets 100 yards on 22 carries and a touchdown? Highly inconsistent, and he's a very, very big gamble. If you need to, I'm okay with Lamar Miller as a flex play only, but I have limited upside, and I really don't want to trust Lamar Miller. Like I said, it's Lamar Miller, and he's really hard to trust, but that passing offense is banged up. Kiki's banged up. Will Fuller can't get on the same page. Deshaun Watson has struggled. Lamar Miller could be a big part of this offense again, but I'm going to limit it as a flex play only and start him there. Eagles and Jags are next, starting off with the Eagles. And hey, remember a couple weeks ago, we were all excited to go grab Corey Clement and Wendell Don't Tell Me I Have Smallwood off the waiver wire, thinking that they were going to be a thing. Well, they haven't really been a thing. I was a little bit higher on Wendell Smallwood. Last week, though, 9 carries, 32 yards. However, compared to Corey Clement, who went out and had 8 carries for 6 yards, neither one of them have been, overwhelming. They've disappointed, to say the least. And it's going to stay a committee going forward. They're going to eat into each other's production and potential. I'm going to sit both of these guys, regardless of the matchup. Yes, they're going up against a Jacksonville Jaguars team who is 8th against opposing running backs, but they've been vulnerable lately. They've given up over 100 yards the past 2 games on the ground and touchdowns. It's a team that's kind of been struggling on defense, but we just don't know where the value lies, if it's going to be Clement or Smallwood, and I'm going to sit them both here in Week 8. On the Jag side of the football, here we go with the committee there in Jacksonville now. TJ Yeldon and Carlos Hyde. And at the same time, all the TJ Yeldon owners hang their head in disgust because TJ Yeldon was doing pretty good here over the past few weeks. He had a decent week last week, only 12 carries for 28 yards, which is not great, but had another 5 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown. He's somebody who's highly involved in this passing offense, and I kind of expect that to continue. He may slide back into what his role was with Leonard Fournette, and the early down work may go to Carlos Hyde. Now, here's my prediction with this. If Carlos Hyde can come out and be productive here this week, it may force their hand to just kind of rest Leonard Fournette a little bit longer. Maybe he doesn't come back after the bye week if they can go out there and really produce with Carlos Hyde. If Carlos Hyde goes out and is highly inefficient, there's a chance that Leonard Fournette comes back. And if that's the case, all 3 of these guys are going to lose, upside because they're going to eat into each other's production. This week, though, with both of them sharing and not really knowing how the game script is going to go, plus it's an absolute tough matchup going against the Philadelphia Eagles defense, which has only allowed 100 yards rushing to opposing running backs 1 time this year and only 2 rushing touchdowns on the year. It's an elite defense in Philly. I'm not going to chance it. I'm going to sit all the running backs here in Jacksonville. Broncos at Chiefs are next. We'll start off with the Broncos, talking about Phillip Lindsay. Yes, Royce Freeman is going to be out for a few weeks, and yes, Devontae Booker will get some work. But it's Devontae Booker, and he hasn't really done a whole lot with what he's been given anyway, so I'm not too concerned about it. I kind of equate this a little bit, slightly, to Phillip Lindsay getting the style of workload that we kind of saw with Alvin Kamara the first couple weeks. A little bit more added to his plate. Maybe more carries out of the backfield, more involvement in the passing game. Now, is he going to go out there and produce Alvin Kamara-style numbers? No. It's a different offense, different quarterback, different schemes. Don't read into it that way. But usage-wise, he could see an uptick on both sides, giving him added value. He's already the 15th ranked running back in fantasy football and PPR leagues. He's gotten double-digit fantasy points every single week this season, with the exception of week 3 against the Ravens. And now he gets a decent matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs where they're going to have to throw the ball. The Chiefs are going to score. We all know that. They're going to have to continue to score that ball in Denver, and Phillip Lindsay is going to be their best option out of the backfield. He's going to be a start for me here in Week 8. On the Chiefs side of the football, you have Kareem Hunt, and I'm going to take a second here because, yes, he's a must-start, but I'm going to look into the camera, and I'm going to talk to Kareem and say, man, I'm sorry. I doubted you in the preseason. I thought there was some bust potential there. Patrick Mahomes coming in, we didn't really know what to expect. The changes in the offense, the additions of Sammy Watkins, how are things going to flow? I didn't want to pay that high price tag on draft day to draft you, and I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I mean, this guy has been nothing short of amazing. Had a great week last week, 15 carries, 86 yards, and a touchdown, to add to another 5 receptions, 55 yards, and 2 more touchdowns. The guy has, been absolutely crazy here the past few weeks. The number 5 running back in all of fantasy sports and PPR leagues, averaging 20 points per game. Got a great matchup. Kareem, my bad. I slept on you a little bit. Shouldn't have. He's a definite must-start from this point going forward. Browns and Steelers are next. We'll start off with the Browns, talking about Nick Chubb and Duke Johnson. Now, if you watched the show last week or saw any of the posts there on YouTube, I'm really high on Nick Chubb. I really like him rest of season, but I don't know if I like him this week in Week 8, going into Pittsburgh, who's coming off the bye week. I can see a negative game script coming here for the Browns. They look demoralized after losing another game in overtime to a field goal. They can only take so much. They are much improved over last year, but it's starting to weigh on them. And going into Pittsburgh, who's just now coming off the bye week, they're rested, high-powered offense. I expect a lot of scoring from the Pittsburgh Steelers. The defense has been struggling for the Browns. I can see a negative game script, and they may have to abandon the run, which is really going to hurt the value of Nick Chubb this week. He'll rely on totally being 100% touchdown dependent, maybe on a long pass interference call, a goal line carry. That's the only place where he's going to have value. Duke Johnson, in my opinion, has more value this week. They're more than likely going to be trailing, chasing points, having to throw the ball more in Cleveland. That gives more value to Duke Johnson. I'm going to start Duke Johnson as a flex play in PPR leagues. And as much as I hate to say it, I'm going to sit Chubb this week. But like I said, I still like him rest of season. For the Steelers, we got James Conner still, and I just get a little bit excited every time I get to talk about the Steelers with no Le'Veon Bell. And I'm sorry to all the Le'Veon Bell owners, but I got absolutely crucified in the preseason. I was told I lost credibility and nobody should listen to me because I was telling people not to draft Le'Veon Bell because I thought he was going to sit out for multiple weeks. Well, here we are, week 8, still no Le'Veon Bell. So on the inside, I kind of enjoy it a little bit. But like I said, sorry to all the Le'Veon Bell owners. Back to James Conner, though. Love James Conner. It's a great matchup for him. Coming off the bye week, he's healthy. He's going to get a ridiculous workload. The week before the bye, he had arguably one of his best games of the season. 19 carries, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, another 4 catches for 18. He'll be involved on both sides of the ball, both running and throwing. Great upside. Great matchup also against the Browns. They're the 20th ranked team against opposing running backs, giving up on average 26 points per game. And there's really not a whole lot of other people in that backfield to take away from James Conner. Love the upside. He's a definite must start for me here in week 8. Redskins and Giants are next. Starting off with the Redskins, talking about old man Adrian Peterson, who looks rejuvenated here as of late. Running hard, breaking tackles, looking really good. Kind of looking like younger Adrian Peterson. Maybe not like 10-year ago Adrian Peterson, but he doesn't look like present-day Adrian Peterson age-wise. He looks impressive. He had 24 carries, 99 yards on the ground. This week, he's never going to be that involved in the passing game that much. The week before that against the Panthers, another 17 carries for 97 yards. He is a safe play at this point because he's getting the volume. If you're looking for a flex play, maybe you had a Melvin Gordon or a Tevin Coleman that you've had in your flex play here the past few weeks, Adrian Peterson is going to be a solid, high floor guy for you here in week 8, and he's going to be a definite start for me going up against the New York Giants, who right now are the 23rd ranked defense to opposing running backs, giving up on average 26.3 points per game. Last week against the Falcons, they were doing pretty good until Tevin Coleman busted that long 30-yard touchdown. But it's a team that can be run on. They've allowed rushing touchdowns in all but 3 games so far this year. I really like the upside of Adrian Peterson. Chris Thompson, we still don't really know about. There's a chance that he misses again this week. He's banged up with injuries. If that happens, yes, Capri Bibbs will kind of take over that role. But that doesn't really hurt Adrian Peterson. If Chris Thompson plays, if he's not limited by the week's end and he's back in the lineup, he's going to be a start also. But as of right now, with those injuries, I'm still going to sit Chris Thompson until we get word that he's healthy. For the Giants, you have Saquon Barkley, and of course you're going to start him. He's the number 2 fantasy running back right now. He's averaging 25.5 points per game. He's highly involved in the passing game there. He's had 9 receptions each of the past 2 weeks. He's scored over 20 points every single week this season in PPR leagues. Now, is his rushing numbers always going to be impressive? Not always. He only had 14 carries and 43 yards this past week against the Falcons. But like I said, he's so involved in the passing game. You're obviously going to start Saquon Barkley. He's somebody who's going to be utilized heavily this entire year. Must start every single week. Seahawks and Lions are next. For the Seahawks, we'll have Mike Davis and Chris Carson. And if you're sitting there staring at your phone or your computer saying, yeah, Jake, which one of them should I start? I'm going to tell you that I really don't know. I don't even know if Pete Carroll knows at this point. Both are productive. It seems a little bit more of the touchdown upside is with Mike Davis, but the volume is with Chris Carson. They do have a decent matchup going up against the Detroit Lions, who right now are the 26th ranked defense against opposing running backs, giving up on average 28.8 points per game. They can be had on the ground. Against Miami last week, they gave up 100 yards rushing and a touchdown. It's a decent matchup for these guys, but which one is it going to be? If I had to choose one right now, it's Chris Carson, just because he has slightly higher volume. But like I said, that touchdown upside is with Mike Davis. At best, either one of them are only a flex play. We really don't know how this committee is going to shake out, and I will not be surprised if going forward at some point, we see a little bit more Rashad Penny so they can see what they have with their first-round draft pick. For the Lions, we got Kerryon Johnson and LeGarrette Blount. Now, last week I said that Kerryon Johnson had breakout potential, and I had him as a start, and he did. He had a great game, 19 carries, 158 yards on the ground. The problem is LeGarrette Blount, who stole the touchdown once again, and that's going to be an issue going forward. However, we saw the volume tick up for Kerryon Johnson. That's the most touches he's had in the game so far this year, and I expect it to continue. He is an elite talent. He's explosive, and he adds a whole different level to this offense. If they can continue to involve him and get him close to 20 touches a week, he becomes a must-start for me in fantasy football, regardless of the format. Is he going to be heavily involved in the passing game? No, probably not. But especially with Theo Riddick out this past week, he did have 2 catches for 21 yards. That's not a lot, but it just adds to the value a little bit here and there. He's a must-start for me this week going up against the Seattle Seahawks. 17th ranked defense against opposing running backs. So middle of the road. They did have, a decent game this past week, 2 weeks ago before their bye. 15 carries, 48 yards only allowed, but that was to the Oakland Raiders, so I get it. The week before that, though, they held Todd Gurley to 77 yards, but they did give up 3 touchdowns on the ground. They can be run against. Kerryon Johnson, like I said, explosive talent. He's going to be a start for me here going forward. LeGarrette Blount, strictly touchdown dependent, and he irritates me, so therefore, he's a sit. Bucks at Bengals are next, so we'll start off with the Bucks. We'll talk about Peyton Barber and I guess Ronald Jones if we have to. Now, there's rumors coming out that Peyton Barber suffered an injury, but we really don't know how bad and if he misses time. If he does, Ronald Jones becomes the starting running back of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I almost have to throw up in my mouth because of it. I don't like Ronald Jones. It's nothing personal. The guy just does not have what it takes to be an efficient running back here in the NFL. He's not in the right situation. He's not on the right team. Tampa Bay highly relies on the passing game there. They're not known for running. They're not going to try to beat you on the ground. Last week, Ronald Jones did have his first career touchdown there on a whole 6 carries for 13 yards, right around the 2 yards per carry that he's been averaging all season. Like I said, with the injury to Peyton Barber, we really don't know. But even if Peyton Barber sits, I don't really have a whole lot of interest in Ronald Jones. They're going up against the Cincinnati Bengals, who I get it. They've allowed 100 yards rushing to opposing running backs 4 out of the last 5 weeks. Understood. However, in those games, they've faced the likes of Kareem Hunt, James Conner, Christian McCaffrey. They're giving it up to legit running backs here. They're not just giving it up to everybody. And this is Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones. Neither one of whom are overly efficient with the touches that they get, and I'm going to pass on them here in Week 8. I'm going to sit both of them, and I'm not even questioning it. For the Bengals, you got Joe Mixon, and he's going to be a must-start for me every week, especially with Gio Bernard out. Doesn't sound like he may be back this week again. Joe Mixon is going to get the work. He's going to get you close to 20 touches. The only issue we've had with him lately is he keeps getting involved in negative game scripts, and they're having to throw a lot more in these games. Trailing Kansas City last week, he only had 13 carries for 50 yards. Now they get the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are the 24th ranked defense against opposing running backs, giving up on average 26.5 points. And like I said, Mixon doesn't really have a whole lot of people to share with right now. He's going to get the bulk of the volume. He does have that pass-catching upside. He looks healthy after his knee procedure. Doesn't look to be limited at all. And he's going to be a start for me here in Week 8. Jets and Bears are next. Starting off with the Jets, you have Isaiah Crowell and Bilal Powell. Now, Powell is banged up. Left the game in Week 7 with a neck injury. Still haven't heard how serious and how much time he may miss. If he's out, that basically leaves Isaiah Crowell to a bulk of the work there for New York. However, they're going up against the Chicago Bears. You can throw against the Bears. You just can't really run against the Bears. Right now, they're the 7th ranked team in fantasy football to opposing running backs. They have yet to allow a rushing touchdown to an opposing running back and have only allowed over 100 yards one time, which was Week 6. This is an elite defense in Chicago. They've struggled at times here through the air, like I said, but they're really tough to run on. And Isaiah Crowell is already inconsistent at best anyway. This past week, 11 carries for 29 yards. This is the same guy who 3 weeks ago had 15 carries for 219 yards. Like I said, highly inconsistent. He's got a very low floor and a very high ceiling. He just can't find that middle ground. And going up against the Chicago Bears, especially if Bilal Powell sits, I'm still going to sit Isaiah Crowell. For the Bears, you got Tariq Cohen and Jordan Howard. And there's a reason why I said Tariq Cohen's name first. It's because he's the better running back in this offense at this point. He's going to go out there and give you that high ceiling week to week. He's had over 20 fantasy points in PPR leagues the last 3 weeks straight. And Jordan Howard just continues his inefficiencies. Yes, he had a touchdown on the ground last week. His first since week 3. That was great. However, 12 carries for 39 yards. And it just seems this offense is not committed to him. Now, that may change as the season goes on. I'm not, dumping Jordan Howard just yet. He has the upside. Hopefully, when the winter months come and the weather gets worse in Chicago, they rely a little bit more on the Jordan Howard running game. But for right now, it's the Tariq Cohen show. If you have Tariq Cohen, he's a definite start this week. He's going up against a 16th ranked defense against opposing running backs in the New York Jets, who gave up last week 96 yards and 2 touchdowns to Latavius Murray. And Tariq Cohen is just super involved, right? He can beat you with the receptions. He can beat you on the ground. He's explosive. He's fun to watch. He's actually really a joy to watch there on Sundays. And I'm going to start Tariq Cohen this week, but I'm going to sit Jordan Howard going up against the New York Jets this week until we can get some absolute consistency out of Jordan Howard. Right now, it's just too hit and miss. Ravens and Panthers are next. Starting off with the Ravens, you got Alex Collins and Uncle Buck Allen. Now, just when we thought Alex Collins had turned the corner and was starting to make a run here second half of the season, back in week 6, he had 19 carries, 54 yards, and 2 touchdowns. What does he do? Comes out week 7, 11 carries, 38 yards, and a whole lot of nothing. But that was against a top-level defense, a run defense in the New Orleans Saints. Now he gets the Carolina Panthers, which is not much easier. They're the 6th-ranked defense against opposing running backs, giving up only 17 points per game. They've only allowed 2 rushing touchdowns on the year. That was week 1 and week 3. It's a solid defense in Carolina. However, the usage is going to be there for Alex Collins this week. The defense in Baltimore is going to be able to limit the upside of the offense in Carolina. Cam Newton is known to cause some turnovers here and there. I can see a lot more ground and pound, a lot more running in this game. I'm going to start Alex Collins against the Carolina Panthers, and for that reason, I'm also going to sit Buck Allen. Now, Buck Allen was, great the first 3 weeks of the season, and then he's disappeared since then. The past 2 weeks combined, he's had 4 carries for 4 yards to go along with his pass catches of a total of 6 catches for 39 yards. Just hasn't really been involved much as of late. Alex Collins is going to get the work, I believe, this week, and he's going to be the start for me out of that Baltimore backfield here in week 8. For the Panthers, you got Christian McCaffrey, and yes, I know you're going to start him, but it's good to see that they're actually starting to use him like we thought they were going to use him. He's not one of those running backs that can go out there and run 28 times out of the backfield like he did in week 3 against Cincinnati. That's not his style. They needed to get him more involved in the passing game. They've started to do that. Now he's hovering right around that 10 carries per game, 5 to 8 receptions a game. That's where he needs to live. He's going to have a lot of opportunity in this offense. He's one of their top offensive options. Going up against the number 1 ranked run defense in the Baltimore Ravens is going to limit his rushing upside. The positive with that, he can beat you with the receptions. He's a definite start for that reason alone. He's not limited just to the run defense because they can line him out in the slot. They can put him in motion, get him the ball in space, and he can make people miss and always has that touchdown upside. I'm going to start Christian McCaffrey despite the tough matchup this week against the Baltimore Ravens. Colts and Raiders are next. We'll start off with the Colts. We'll talk about Marlon Mack and Nyheim Hines. And in case you're wondering, yep, Mack is back. Much to the dismay of all the Nyheim Hines owners, who he actually provided some value for a few weeks. But now that Marlon Mack is back in the mix, Nyheim Hines takes a huge hit in value. Mack can play all 3 downs. He's capable of catching the passes out of the backfield. Had a great week this past week against the Buffalo Bills. 19 carries, 126 yards, and a touchdown to go along with another 2 receptions, 33 yards, and another touchdown. Like I said, he's somebody that can beat you both through the air and on the ground. And in an Andrew Luck-led offense where he can pull defenders out of the box, especially now that T.Y. Hilton is healthy, that's only going to open things up more for Marlon Mack. He's got a great matchup against the Oakland Raiders. 20th ranked run defense to opposing running backs, giving up 26 points per game. They're 2 weeks ago before the bye. They gave up 123 yards rushing to the Seattle Seahawks. They've given up over 100 yards to opposing running backs 4 out of 6 games. This team can be run on. I love Marlon Mack this week, and he's a definite start for me. On to the Raiders now, and Marshawn Lynch isn't there, on IR with a groin injury. So we're talking about Doug Martin and Jalen Richard, both of who you probably picked off of waivers in your league. But does that mean that you throw them right into your starting lineup? Probably not, at least for Doug Martin. Last week, he was a healthy scratch. He wasn't even really involved in the game plan in Oakland. And now all of a sudden, yes, he's going to get a bump in production. He's going to get you close to 10 to 15 carries a game. But how efficient he is with those carries, we have to wait and see. Jalen Richard is somebody who I would start this week as a flex play in PPR leagues. He has upside. He's already scored double-digit fantasy points 3 out of the last 4 weeks. And now he gets a bump in production. He's somebody whose value has risen more to me than those of Doug Martin. Jalen Richard, you can put into your lineup this week as a flex play in PPR leagues against the 19th ranked defense in the Indianapolis Colts. It's a decent matchup. And now that Amari Cooper is out of town, the only pass-catching weapons they have in Oakland are Jordy Nelson, Martavis Bryant, and who I think is their best option, Jared Cook. They're going to rely more on Jalen Richard going forward, and he is who I would start out of this backfield if need be. 49ers and Cardinals are next, so we'll start off with the 49ers. We'll talk about Matt Breida and Raheem. I'm almost a must-start Mostert this week. But should they be in our lineups? Matt Breida's already come out and said, hey, I'm not 100% healthy. Maybe I need to rest a couple weeks, get back to some good health. He's got all kinds of nagging injuries that he just can't seem to get past. And Mostert has been somewhat productive in the amount of carries he's gotten. Last week against the Rams, 7 carries for 59 yards. The week before that against Green Bay, 12 carries for 87. He could handle more work in this backfield, and they're going up against the worst run defense to opposing running backs in the Arizona Cardinals, who are giving up, on average, 34 points per game to opposing running backs. They've given up touchdowns every single week to opposing running backs, with the exception of week 5, which was when? The last time they played the San Francisco 49ers. I do like Raheem Mostert this week as a flex play. If you're looking for a bye week replacement or you're decimated by injuries, I would plug him in as a flex play. It's bold, it's a gamble. I get it. If you're in your league and you end up starting Raheem Mostert and he carries you for that week, or he has a decent game and you end up winning, you're going to look like a fantasy genius, because I can guarantee most people in your league have no idea who the heck is Raheem Mostert. As far as Matt Breida goes, we need to wait and see. If he plays, he's not going to be a start for me. He's too banged up. He needs to get rested. I can see him sitting out here in week 8, and he's going to be a sit for me also. On the Cardinal side of the football, you have David Johnson, who you're going to start. I get it. But a lot of people have been frustrated with David Johnson, saying, oh, he's having a down year. That offense is horrible. And yes, it has been on both cases. The offense has been horrible, and David Johnson hasn't really overwhelmed very much. However, with all that being said, right now, starting week 8, he's the number 11 fantasy running back in PPR leagues. And that's somewhat impressive, considering we haven't really talked a whole lot about him in a positive way. He's got the touchdowns started here the last few weeks, and now the offense changes to Byron Leftwich instead of Mike McCoy, who may be one of the worst offensive coordinators in all of the NFL. And I really like where David Johnson's potential goes from here. I expect this Cardinals offense to start to turn the corner in a positive way, and I love the matchup this week for David Johnson. He's an obvious must start. If you have him, you're starting him. Going up against the San Francisco 49ers is only a plus. Love David Johnson this week. Packers and Rams are next, and this may be a fun game to watch on TV, but it may not be great for fantasy purposes for the Green Bay running backs. You have Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, and Ty Montgomery. It's still going to be a committee. Now, I told you guys a few weeks ago that Aaron Jones was a good buy low candidate for me, and I still stand by that. Does it happen this week, though? It's going to be tough against the Los Angeles Rams. Not so much the defense. The defense has been able to run on here periodically. It's more the offense of the Los Angeles Rams that I'm worried about. They can go up and put points up in bunches, which could create a negative game script for these running backs and force Aaron Rodgers to throw the ball a lot more than turning around and handing the ball off enough times to say an Aaron Jones to make him be productive. Like I said, a lot more vertical passing in this game is what I see, a lot less running. That, put aside, you still have the committee between Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones. There's too many question marks this week. If anybody that I think may get an uptick in volume, it may be Ty Montgomery this week. He's a little bit more involved in the passing game, had a touchdown their game before the bye, but he's been really inconsistent, hasn't really seen the amount of volume that I think he should be seeing. For that reason, though, there's just too many question marks. I'm going to sit all of the Green Bay Packers running backs here in Week 8. For the Rams, you got Todd Gurley, and yes, I know he's an obvious must-start. But a quick side note, I keep getting questions about people wanting to know what they can get for Todd Gurley. Or, is this a fair trade if you're trading away Gurley? Stop trading away Todd Gurley. If you have him, keep him, enjoy him, and start him, because he's averaging 30 points per game, the number 1 fantasy running back. And even though his value is higher now than it will ever be, do not sell Todd Gurley. Hang on to him, please. Saints and Vikings are next. We'll start off with the Saints. Alvin Kamara, must start. Yes, I know you're frustrated with his production the past couple weeks with Mark Ingram coming back, but don't give up on Alvin Kamara just yet. I don't care who he plays, where he plays, what time the game starts, where the game's played. It doesn't matter. You start Alvin Kamara. He has that huge, huge upside. Mark Ingram, somebody who came back from suspension, had 2 touchdowns, looked great. Didn't look so great last week, but that was going up against the top-rated run defense of the Baltimore Ravens. But now they get the Minnesota Vikings, who are no pushovers on the ground. The Minnesota secondary is what's banged up right now, and I expect a lot more throwing in this game from Drew Brees than running. However, if you're looking for a flex play, I'm still starting Mark Ingram as a flex play only. He's somebody who could always get that goal line opportunity. That vertical offense in New Orleans could end up in a deep, pass interference play or a pass interference play in the end zone and a goal line touch for Mark Ingram. That is always there. I'll start him as a flex play only. And yes, Alvin Kamara must start every single week. On the Vikings side of the football, you have Dalvin Cook and Latavius Murray. Now, Dalvin Cook, we still don't know about if he's going to play or not. It's one of these things where we're just going to have to wait and see how the week plays out, see how much, how many reps he gets in practice, if he's going to be involved. He could be headed towards another game time decision or maybe ruled out again here in the coming days, something we need to pay attention to. Latavius Murray, though, he's been productive the past 2 weeks, right? Last week against the Jets, 69 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. He's had over 20 fantasy points 2 straight weeks. But the Saints' defense is a lot easier to throw against than run against. They're the number 2 ranked defense behind the Baltimore Ravens, giving up points to opposing running backs, only giving up on average 16 points per game. They've allowed 3 rushing touchdowns on the year, which isn't bad. However, the most yardage they've allowed to opposing running backs was way back in week 1, where they allowed 76 yards total. You can't run a whole lot on the Saints. A lot easier to beat them through the air. I expect a lot more throwing in this game, like I mentioned with Kamara and Ingram. And I'm going to sit both Cook and Murray, even though we don't know the status of Cook yet. I'm just not on the Murray bandwagon this week. Monday Night Football, we have the Patriots at the Bills. Starting off with the Patriots, Sony Michel's not going to be there. So now we're talking about Kenyon Barner and if he's worth a start. And in my opinion, unless you're decimated by injuries or bye weeks, he's not. If you do need somebody in a pinch for a bye week replacement or an injury replacement, as a flex play only, Kenyon Barner is going to touch the ball. He's going to get it somewhere between 8 and 15 times a game, but he's going to be somewhat dependent on touchdowns. James White is the guy that you want in this backfield. With the injury to Sony Michel, James White catapults into RB1 territory, solid RB1 territory. Right now, he's the number 6 running back in all of fantasy football and PPR leagues, and he is a definite 100% must start regardless of matchup. Kenyon Barner, though, is nothing more than an injury or bye week replacement as a flex play only. A lot of the value is going to be going towards James White. All right, now for the Bills, I haven't really been on this backfield all year long, and now we have injuries galore. You have LaShawn McCoy dealing with concussion protocol. Chris Ivory left the game hurt. Marcus Murphy came in, and everybody was like, who the heck is Marcus Murphy? He had a decent showing, 4 carries for 53 yards on the ground, added another 5 catches for 17. But obviously, you're not going to go out there, add, and start Marcus Murphy. I'm going to avoid this altogether. They're going to have to throw the ball against the New England Patriots, and may God have mercy on the soul of all Buffalo Bills fans. This one could get out of hand, and it could get ugly. National TV. Brady's already going out there on Instagram or Snapchat or Bookface or whatever the heck it is, talking about they're on their way, Bills Mafia. I'm going to be a little bit worried about Buffalo this week. They need to pull off a miracle to have any chance in this game on Monday night. I'm sitting everybody in Buffalo again. All right, those were all the running back matchups here for Week 8. Hopefully that was able to help you guys out a little bit. Make sure you guys have your calendars ready. 9:30 p.m. this Saturday, we'll be doing that live show. Make sure that notification bell is checked. You want to know as soon as we go live. I'm looking forward to interacting with you guys a lot. Going to have planned for about an hour and 15-minute live show that night. So make sure you make some time. Come by, say hi. Looking forward to it. Make sure you guys are subscribing to the channel and liking the videos. They greatly help me out, and I really appreciate your support. Have a good rest of your week. We'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.